Welcome to the Artisan and Reenactors Market podcast. This is a chance to hear from the merchants, makers, living history experts and performers who are part of the ARM family. Hear them talk passionately about their products and history. The ARM family welcomes new traders, groups, living history and performers. See our website armarket.uk to find out more. In this episode, Artisans, Musicians and Buccaneers. I talked to Georgina, one of the founders and organisers of the Artisan and Reenactors Market, about how the market started.
When we first did the big event at the WEC, I had public coming up to me just going, "This is incredible."
A Merrie Noyse share their love of playing historical music.
What Rod does, he's got a very poetic lilt, haven't you?
A poetic lilt.
Poetic lilt. Cornish West Country accent.
It does help, doesn't it?
Does
Having
help
an accent.
And some pirate history from the Wanderin shop proprietor, Honest Jim.
When their ship surrendered and they lowered their flag, pulled in their sails, it would take the pirates up to an hour to get alongside. They know the first thing the pirates are going to do is break open the liquor stores, so you might as well do it yourself. So quite often the crew would already be drunk when the pirates came aboard, which we think was a big factor in people choosing to join pirate crews, was because actually they were already drunk.
First, how the ARM family came to being.
So, George, founding member of the ARM Market, can you tell us, please, how did this come about?
It started off with a friend basically saying to me that they live nearby. There's a village hall in Reenactors, and we managed to fit in 12 traders. We had, I think, nearly 2,000 people through over the weekend, and it kind of just bankrolled from there, really.
One thing I really like about being part of the ARM network is it is family. It does feel like, with you leading and everyone supporting each other, like you got us cake. I mean, come on now, that's a good reason to be part of the ARM Market.
So I couldn't have done it without the trade support. We've got like a little committee made up of the people that were there at the beginning.
So how many traders are in the family now, George? How many have we got?
I've got 90 on the books, but we normally get about 60 traders, 65 traders.
And it's all multi-period, so across time periods, across genres of making. What would you say is one of our market's draws to bring the public in?
I think it's because we treat everyone with respect, and I think everyone feels that way as well. So when we first did the big event at the WEC, I had public coming up to me just going, "This is incredible."
I think that's a really big part of the ARM Market, and you can feel that as a member of the public when you're walking around, showing the camaraderie really that exists.
The actual atmosphere is like is just so relaxed. Everyone's laughing, the public are laughing, the traders are laughing, everyone's having they're having a meet up. We've got the social, well, we did have the social area, depending on what happens with COVID now. But I think that's the big thing, is that we want to make it is either the beginning of the season or the end of the season. So it's either you're getting together because you haven't seen each other since November last year, or it's the last opportunity to see each other. So I think that's the big thing of it. Especially when we're sort of at the WC, we've got so much space as well. It's like we've got 4 or 5 meters between each aisle, so it's nice and spacious. People can mingle, people can chat, people can stop and chat without being in the way. And I said there's a brilliant restaurant there and everything else, so people can spend a day doing it and things. And it's just one of those things. I think it's definitely the atmosphere that makes it a massive draw.
One of my favourite memories from ARM is dancing with a certain honest gentleman to some live music that goes around. And that just helps to add the atmosphere, really, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Because you have Kitchen Von Mew coming, and she does our music. And we also have, obviously, the Merrie Noyse as well, or A Merrie Noyse, who obviously pick up their instruments every now and again and have a little bit of a drum.
And from traders' point of view,
like we did last year.
you are very helpful in that I know I can just ping you a message, no matter how stupid I feel like it is, and you very patiently answer that message and help me to navigate online trading and forms and times and whatever else I might have missed. You'll patiently explain to me for the umpteenth time. So thank you for being approachable as well, Georgina. So that's another plus for our market.
If anybody does want to join in, whether it's trader, we're also looking at potentially doing group promotion stands as well, sort of physically as well as obviously on the website, because we've changed the website so it's more of a directory. So of course we can put any trader on there, whether they're from England or international or anything like that. So we've obviously got the group page as well, so you can advertise your group or your business depending on if you're an interpreter or not. The virtual is here to stay, so whenever we do a physical market, we will also have the virtual market on as well for the people who can't travel.
We certainly are trying with the online thing. We're very trying.
And I do it for the love of it, and I keep getting told off by Dave Allen with my business head. Actually, I'm more of my business heart more than anything else, because as you say, we're all family. I want to be able to do something that helps get you guys some money coming in.
I feel like doing the ARM virtual has definitely made me more confident in then being able to use online things with my own trading pages and that. So that's been really good.
So it's sort of to help one have that community again. So we're all talking to each other and getting involved. It's also giving you the tools to actually take your business up next stage, really. I think that's one thing that reenactors are starved of, is the social side, is that a lot of us are very introvert and we don't actually like to see a lot of people. But when you've got people that actually on the same wavelength as you, is that we're all starved of that. We're starved of the campfire, we're starved of seeing people and actually talking to people how they made something or whatever, because again, a lot of markets you don't have the opportunity to actually chat and be like, well, how did you get that color green and how did you make that belt or whatever. But at least then they can actually see where the magic happens.
I'm loving the analogy of being starved, because that really excuses is like lockdown weight gain. We're just starved of all affection, fireside chats. I'm sure other traders would like to join me in thanking you, George, for your hard work that you've done in helping ARM be virtual and online during this time. So from all of us, a big whoop whoop, and thank you very much.
Find out more about the merchants, makers, living history specialists, performers and groups in the ARM family at armmarket.uk. Next up, A Merrie Noyse and their medieval music.
We're joined now by Sue, Baz and Rod from A Merrie Noyse. Hello, everyone.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi there.
Hey.
Good, thank you. So you guys are the musicians who perform medieval, Tudor and other 17th century music in period costume with authentic instruments for a variety of events and occasions. And you also cover other time periods as well. So can I just ask, let's start with Sue, please. Sue, how did you get into this?
Went to university and ended up becoming a qualified museum professional. My first proper museum full-time job was at Avencroft Museum of Historic Buildings in Bromsgrove. I was education manager there.
Oh, fantastic.
And as part of my job, I was to book events for people, book the gigs and book the reenactors and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And one of the guys that I met was Paul Baker of Diabolus and Musica, who is also a fan and a follower and friend of ARM. Baz and I were quite sort of impressed with his hurdy-gurdy skills, his recorder skills and the size of his pants. Because he wear these, you know, he had these huge, you know, doublet and hose on that were incredibly massive.
I must see that.
Oh, look on his website. You'll see that Paul became a very good friend of ours and still is. And invited him round to dinner one night, and because both Baz and I are already musicians, we're brass players really. We met through the brass banding world. He sort of brought over his crumhorn and his racket and his bagpipes and his shawm.
Wow.
And we just sat down and started playing with him. And when we just started gigging with Paul. Paul asked us if we could do some gigs with him. And it just snowballed from there.
So how did we crowbar Rod in then?
Well, curiously enough, my careers advisory officer said, don't become a forester. So I became one. Later on, Baz and Sue were practicing one night, and they said, we need a drummer. And I said, well, I'm not a drummer. I can cut down trees. And they said, oh, that's just the sort of person we need. You can keep time, and the rest, of course, is history.
So hence the forester part of your name. And I saw on your website as well linked to archery, Rod.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do a bit of archery, a little bit of archery instruction as well.
So we're now going to listen to Personent Hodier and have a little talk about it afterwards.
The fire with well-dried logs supplied went roaring up the chimney wide. Then was brought in the lusty brawn by an old blue-coated serving man. Then the grim boar's head frowned on high, crested with bays and rosemary. Then came the merry maskers in, and carols roared with blithesome din. If unmelodious was the song, it was a hearty note, and strong.
Well, Personent Hodier is an old one. It's a medieval carol. You just heard it there. And that's our version. That's a Merrie Noyse version. That goes back. It's a medieval song in Latin. It was published in about the 1580s, but well before that. And it's a Finnish song. Pia Cantinonis. And those were a collection of 24 medieval songs in Latin. We like it, don't we?
We do like it. And that tune is featured on our Merry Yule CD.
Well, that's a good plug.
It is available from me directly, or we'll be selling it again at the market. And what we've done with the CD is how we're doing a lot of our CDs now is we like to marry up the music with some readings of the time. So we've done with this particular CD, it's full of all different readings done by Rod the drummer, who has a fantastic reading voice. It really lends to what Rod does. He's got a very poetic lilt, haven't you?
A poetic lilt.
Poetic lilt. Cornish West Country accent.
It does help, doesn't it?
Does
Having
help
an accent.
So we've sort of put the music and the readings, poetry or prose snippets on the same level, because it's all that sort of cultural history that gives you a flavour of the time, and it adds a bit of atmosphere. So we've done that on a couple of CDs now, the Merrie Yule and the Crescent and the Cross, which is our medieval CD, which has got readings from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, because we were looking at the East, what was going on culturally at the same time as music in the West, and trying to bring it together a bit.
Much like anyone who makes anything historical, you're keeping it alive and exposing it to new generations.
We've got one in the planning. We're working on a version of
Gawain and the Green Knight.
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So that's going to be our next big project, which we're working on. And hopefully in the fullness of time, we'll be able to turn these into performances that we can tour around, you know, markets, historic properties, other venues, museums, things like that. But
I'm so in. If you want someone in a flounce around in a dress,
yeah, you want flounce. Barry flounces quite well as well. He likes a flouncy outfit, don't you, Baz?
I love it.
So that's the plan for the next 12 months.
That's the plan.
Yeah. That sounds fantastic. Something to really look forward to there. Awesome. So we talked about the instruments being historical, but you also wear costume when you perform. What do you wear?
We've had some authentic costume made for different periods. We cover late medieval, really, all the way through the Renaissance, the Tudor stuff, and then we go a little bit into the Carolinian, and then we jump to Victorian. Rod, you actually wear Levi's as well, don't you, Rod?
Under his frock.
Under my frock.
Under your gown.
That's one of the
in
nice
the cold weather.
You get to wear a frock for late medieval costume.
Don't they actually call it a frock?
They don't call it a frock.
If it's a bit chilly, you know, it hides a multitude of sins, some of these outfits, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Same with the Vike outfits, because leggings, job, whatever you can get to keep the layers on, because not built for warmth.
No, I mean, some people have booked us to do gigs in December, you know, walking around Christmas markets, add a bit of atmosphere, which is wonderful. We love it. But after about 20 minutes of playing, you can't move your fingers.
Oh,
you
no.
know, it's so cold. So you
The thing about live musicians is that we can change and alter things to suit the people that are there. Whereas if you've got recorded music, it's fixed, yeah.
And that's what we like doing when we go to gigs is talking to the public, you know. So we'll be wandering around doing our medieval thing, and then, you know, a couple of times we've heard people say, oh, that's nice, or that's interesting, and we'll just stop playing and say, oh, thank you very much.
We call it live and jive, and get people to join in, and it's lovely. It's really lovely, you know. It's interactive, and that's what makes it fun, isn't it? That's why we do it.
You don't want to be, I don't think you want to be too precious about it. I mean, we have been known to play the theme from Blackadder, which does make people look up occasionally.
Not quite, only people of a certain age nowadays.
Well, that's right,
you know?
younger people don't
anyone under 30 are like,
yeah, but Lady Gaga's a real killer, isn't it?
Lady Gaga gets them every time.
Yeah, that's great.
I would love to hear that. That's the next arm market. Have a go. Oh, I love that.
We see the same people
we do.
Different shows, and it's almost like an extended family.
Absolutely. I call it trade a family, Rod, because it does feel like that, and especially with Georgina and the arm market, she just seems to extend that big hug around everyone and looking after each other. It's lovely. Who's the bagpipist, the bagpiper?
Well, the two of us to play the pipes. It's Sue and myself play the pipes, and Rod tries to keep up on the drum. And I mean, a lot of people think the bagpipes are those things that came from Scotland, you know, those weapons of war. But the bagpipes we play we've got some Flemish pipes, some great big medieval German pipes. You know, the Flemish are like the French ones, and there's some tiny German ones called Hummelschen, which are really, really soft, and the big German ones are loud. So, you know, most countries in the world have bagpipes.
What's the oldest instrument that you guys have access to that you enjoy playing? What's the oldest thing you do?
The oldest ones probably are a thing called the Zurna or Shayanai, which originated probably Persia. We certainly they had them in Egypt, and a thing called a mizmar. They're all very similar, all in the same family. They have a little reed at one end, and they're about 12 inches long. They can be bigger, and just holes burnt in them or drilled in them. And they've got one dynamic, and it's called stun. Okay, and they still play them in Turkey. They still play them at weddings, and that's really the forerunner of the oboe. And then the clarinet and reed instruments over here. We think had something to do with the Crusaders, but no one knows really. But yeah, so they're the oldest, and they're probably going back really to before the 9th century. And I think there was something similar found in an Egyptian tombs. Very similar to that, obviously not playable.
Of course, drums go back into the mists of time. I mean,
oh yeah,
they go back until people were banging rocks together.
So on your website it says you do weddings, special events, things like that. So what kind of things have you done that to make someone's day really special?
One that really springs to mind is one we did a few years back in Oxford, and a man, he put on a celebration, and he'd written a play for her as well, and invited all the friends round and got food and everything like that. And so we went down and we played, you know, we did a rehearsal actually with them because they wanted music in the play. And so it turned out to be a really, really special day. And it was a great event, wasn't it?
It was lovely.
But in contrast to that, we also go to Evesham and play for the people who suffer with dementia, and we give them instruments and they play, and you see some people light up. Even one lady who couldn't speak started singing, you know, because it struck a chord with her.
I mean, we've played at some fantastic venues, you know, Banqueting House in Whitehall. We've played, that was with Diabolus and Musica. We've played at,
King's College, Cambridge.
King's College in Cambridge, yeah, with Matthew and Jill, History Needs You, who also come to Arm Market. You know, that was a fantastic gig where we got to parade around Rachel Duffield as Queen Elizabeth I, and they closed the roads in the middle of Cambridge, and we got to go and parade around and then play in King's College Chapel, which was just like the pinnacle. And Barry being a Cambridge lad, it was like, you know, the pinnacle. It felt really, really special.
One of the really nice ones we did, we played at the opening of the Merrie Noyse museum.
Wow, awesome.
The unveiling of the ship, wasn't it? The reveal.
That's right, yeah. That was good. We had what we called, it was on a Tuesday, we called it Two Ship Tuesday, because we did Merrie Noyse in the morning and then went to Bristol to do, what was the other?
The SS Great Britain.
So you're like historical performers making history because you're revealing that this is amazing. You're part of history now as well.
Yeah.
We get glimpses of wonderful places that sometimes the public are not allowed into, and we think, oh, wow, we must come back and look at this.
Well, but then you're doing another gig, you've got something else going on.
or conversely, you only see one tiny little bit of a really lovely place, and someone comes up to you and said, oh, did you manage to see the chapel? It's one of the best chapels in blah, blah. And you go, no, because we were asked to play here and we've not been able to move from anywhere, you know. So it's both and, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I'll probably say that we play music, and Rod does fantastic vocals. We also have a line of recorders that we had commissioned, medieval recorders that are really they're really inexpensive. They're under £70. We have them commissioned from a place in Russia, and we've written a few music books for people who want to play tunes and stuff like that, and or dances, and we've written a book, How to Read Music. It comes with a CD. It's foolproof. Rod used it when he was learning the drum.
What a perfect lockdown gift for someone.
We've written a couple of music books, medieval one, a Tudor one, and how to play, and how to water divine as well. But we'll leave that one. But
I'm all over that. That's a whole nother side of me. I love all that.
The rods are always in the car, so next time we see you,
yes,
we get the rods out.
Yes, let's do that. Yes.
You'll never sell any more again, Barry.
That's right. Well, 85% of people can actually do it. And if you can't do it, you can't learn to do it. If you can't do it, you can't do it.
Okay, guys. So thank you ever so much for your time today. I wish you stay warm and well, and hopefully see you at Evesham.
Lovely.
All being well. Thank you
Lovely.
very much, guys. So lovely to talk to you today.
Yes, and you.
Okay, Jenny.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Take care.
Bye,
Have a good
guys.
day.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Next up, we're sailing the seven seas with Honest Jim, the part-time pirate. But first of all, we take a look in his magnificent and quite magical Wanderin shop.
And joining me now is the proprietor of the Wanderin shop. It is Mr. Honest Jim himself. Hello, Jim.
Hello. All right there. How are we doing, Jenny?
I'm good.
So yeah, the Wanderin shop. Nobody knows exactly how it happened. So it was meant to be just another bog standard reenactment shop, and I think it got carried away. Basically, people often say, "How did you end up with this weird, strange construction wandering around the country with you?" And I think basically I'm channeling my inner 12-year-old. When you're a kid and you believe it, you read books and you hear about magical shops and shops full of all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. And then you're disappointed because you never find them. And I think that's part of me. What part of me is trying to achieve with the shop. But it's been a lot of fun along the way anyway.
I love that ethos. I know something that sometimes freaks me out a little bit, and that is you do sell body parts, Jim.
Well, yes, there are some body parts. We have a.
We leave it up to the imagination.
Well, we have a selection of sort of arcane and weird things, which includes various taxidermy and wet specimens and so on. And then we've got a lot of fakes. So we have lots of fake human skulls, fake shrunken heads, and various other weird things and oddities. So obviously, these are things that are catered more towards the kind of personalities that you get at reenactment, rather than something necessary for your living history. As I'm yet to meet anyone doing headhunter in this country. I have my boxes full of knickknacks, so things like handful scissors, awls, period coins of various kinds, dice. I mean, we've got wooden dice, bone dice, horn dice, clay dice. So there's all the knickknacks and accoutrements and jewellery and things like that are obviously a big part of the business. But quite often, because of the weird stuff I sell, people come to me for commissions or to find weird and wonderful things or to make strange things for them. So that takes up a lot of the business. And then there's various hats and bits of clothing and of course all the leatherwork stuff. So obviously I make all.
I was then going to say that with your skilled leatherwork stuff as well.
I do have some historical blunts and sharps of various kinds, knives, swords, axes, and so on. But I actually carry a larger stock of more modern Damascus stuff, not to be mixed up with pattern welded 10th, 11th century stuff. So this is not historical stuff, but a lot of reenactors are also bushcrafters, and they appreciate a nice knife. And again, so do the public at events. So at first I had a half dozen different types of Damascus blades. Now there's probably about 30 different varieties that I have at any one events, including our kitchen knives now as well. So it's reckoned by the average person seems to reckon it takes about a good half hour at least just to rummage through my shop. And even then, they haven't seen everything. So it's always good to ask. Now, one of the other things I do, which is lesser known, is in the past, I have run various events and so on. But I also do historical interpretation. So any clients out there that are looking for a trader who can also put displays on, And I do cover lots of topics I'm quite knowledgeable about. But the thing I'm really passionate about is pirates. Really, I wanted to just cover some basic points about pirates. If anyone's really interested, if you look up on YouTube and go for pirates an introduction, you'll find about an hour's worth of me whittering on about pirates. So if you want in-depth stuff, head over there. But what I thought I'd talk today about was a few things about reenactors that might be considering dipping their toe in piracy. So So what have we got on the pirate circuit in the UK? When we're not in a lockdown and all that, there are actually quite a lot of events. By my reckonings, at least 30 reenactment pirate festival or reenactment events throughout the year up and down the country. And those are just the larger events, with 50, 60 reenactors or more taking part. And there are, broadly speaking, there's 3 categories really of pirate reenactor out there. There's what I call the Hollywood pirates. Some people call them plastic pirates. And these are really people that are there as Jack Sparrow impersonators, or they're doing black sail stuff. And it entertains the public. Is it really reenactment? That's one to debate. But I mean, in my book, it isn't really reenactment if you're not portraying anything to do with history. But it's good for getting the crowds in. And I'll work with whichever people are at any one event. You've then got people that are pirate reenactors, but not necessarily too fussed about getting it historically correct. They tend to wear things like bucket top boots, shout "yar" a lot, and wear tricorn hats. And then there are some people that are aiming for the more authentic pirate reenactment look, where we actually are looking at what pirates actually wore and trying to look at the real history. Personally, I'll work with any of these 3 groups. That's what I do. That's what I go for, and it makes me happy. So there we go. And so it's a good idea to get out there and do research. On the pirate circuit, it's far more difficult because what the public have been bombarded with pretty much everywhere is wrong. Most children's books about pirates have them wearing bucket top boots, which are a type of riding footwear, and tricorn hats. Which then I'd love it if we could wear tricorn hats, because tricorn hats look cool. They really do look cool. But the simple fact is they didn't exist before at least 1730, which just means that pirates can't be wearing hats of that type because they didn't exist. Simple as. What should they be wearing? Here's a few pointers. So if it's a hot summer event, I'd totally recommend a straw hat. Would they wear this whilst actually working on board ship other than scrubbing the deck? So would they wear this up in the rigging? Probably not, because it's probably not going to stay on your head for very long. It's not the most practical thing for wearing in the rigging, but if I'm scrubbing the deck, yeah, totally keeps the sun off the back of my neck as well a bit. Although any well-dressed sailor would be wearing a neckerchief. So straw hat, always a good option, especially for those hot summer events. A good all-rounder, and in particular good for winter, is something like a From hat or a Monmouth cap. This is a Monmouth cap.
Oh, yes.
This is a nice simple woolen hat. And a budget option, if you shop at my shop, is a simple round hat. So I knock these ones out at 15 quid a pop. The other big thing I'd like to talk about is, if you're getting into looking at doing authentic pirate stuff, is where you're going to spend your money. And I know the temptation is to get yourself a great big pistol and a great big sword, because toys, yeah, I totally understand. I've got a gun cabinet full, I've got blank firers, and I've got, I don't know, I think I've got 4 pirate swords in the house currently. So I'm totally with you, I totally get it, but it's not necessarily something to jump out straight away and worry about. As you'll note, I've just said I've got 4 swords, I've probably got 5 guns. So if you go to an event, there's lots of people like me who will probably lend you weapons. So first thing is, and this is true of almost every period, to be honest, is consider getting your soft kit right first, and going from there. And one thing I hear a lot of people say is they say, "Oh, I would do the authentic stuff, but it's so expensive." And I can never understand this, because a frock coat, you're looking at probably 200 quid. Whereas my pride and joy is my very simple sailor's jacket. It's brown wool. It's lined with a fairly basic white linen. It's got pockets on the inside, great big pockets. That's about 10 inches deep, 6 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches wide. So great big pocket. So I've got another ginormous pocket on the other side as well, because pockets were a thing by this period. Which, if you're used to doing medieval and other earlier periods, it's very exciting to have pockets at last. But this jacket, it's already a bit tatty, not from anything I've done on purpose. I haven't weathered this kit. I've just worn it, and basically anyone that knows me knows what happens when I wear kits. Although one thing I have done, which I had great fun doing, was I've actually sewn authentic replica coins, which I make for this period myself. They're all hand cast, hand struck. I've actually sewn them into the seams. Right. And I found, in fact, the armpit actually is a really good place for hiding coins. Well, we know that sailors would often, if they got a decent bit of wealth, they'd often try and hide it somewhere, partly because there's a risk of their ship being captured by pirates, but also from being thieved by other members of the crew. Soldiers would quite often do this if they got plunder as well. So it's not an uncommon thing. And if you're transporting a fair bit of wealth, you don't really want it jingling around in your pockets. And we have lots of cases where pirates have been found out in England when somebody's looked at somebody and they thought a bit suspicious. And when they've checked their clothing, they have found coins sewn into the seams. So we know that this did happen. And it seemed obvious to put it in the bottom of the jacket down here, but actually it really does, it hangs differently and everything. Whereas here, on the armpit, if they get loose, I'll know about it because I'll feel that they've disappeared. So they're quite well protected here. It's not a place where you like to get a tear. And when you're wearing it, of course, it's under your arm. So there's no obvious bulge for someone to see. And so I've got, so there's probably about 3 months' wages for a hard-working sailor hidden in this jacket. So not a bad bit of coin to have secreted about your person. But this basic jacket, it doesn't have a collar. So it doesn't have any outside pockets. The pockets are only simple ones on the inside. The buttons are not metal. They're not wood, not horn. They're just cloth buttons, which I just don't see enough of. But there are makers out there that can supply these things. So it's worth finding somebody that can. I actually made these ones myself, and they're holding up quite nicely. And this one bit of kit is one of the things that I take the most delight in because it's absolutely bang on. It's what they should be wearing. And for me, that makes me happy. But you can get your shirt, a neckerchief, a pair of slop trousers, which is your basic kit. That's pretty much everything you need for less than 60 quid. That's if you know the right people to go to. So it's not expensive for your basic kit. Jackets can come later. Most of our events are in warm weather when you don't need a jacket. And then you just need a basic leather belt, not some huge, massive thing, without having got any evidence for any sailors having belts more than 2 inches thick. And I keep on saying sailors, and I'm talking about pirates, but the key thing is that nearly all pirates were sailors first and foremost. You don't go, oh, me and the crew, we turned pirate yesterday, let's sew skulls and crossbones on it and everything and change what we're wearing. That's just not a thing. There were some cases where some captains on plundering ships might seize a nice posh frock coat and go parading around in it for a while. So we've got accounts of this happening where, in fact, they got in trouble with their crews for going and walking around showing off to local ladies wearing such things. But on the whole, they didn't change how they dressed just because they turned pirate. So aim for a simple sailor, you'll have a lot more fun. As for weaponry, as I said, you can borrow stuff, but what we don't see enough of is things like boarding pikes. Boarding pike, you could use a basic spear to start off with. Ideally, you want one with langets on the side, but that can be sorted out later on when you've got a bit more cash. But something like that actually is underrepresented currently. But what we are doing at that point in history is we're exporting a lot of axes from Europe to America. Later on, it comes back the other way, but at this point in time, we're actually sending a lot of these things to America, which means almost every ship you plunder is going to have some axes on board.
Oh, well.
One thing, carpenters need axes, and you need axes to go and cut trees down if something happens to your mast. A simple period axe is actually far more appropriate. And of course, a stick. You know, if you're a sailor or a common working person, you start walking around in London town or Portsmouth with a sword and a pistol, you're going to get yourself into a lot of trouble very quickly. But no one is going to stop a man walking around with a stick. And having a stout stick is an even better idea. So get yourself a nice stick, something, 4 foot, 4 or even 5 foot long, so which you give somebody a whack with. That's the kind of thing that a sailor's more likely to be carrying a lot of the time. So get yourself a stick. It's always a good choice.
And you see, I was selling them at Duncat Hall. A pirate would have bought them.
There we go.
So one of the myths about pirates is that they went to islands and buried treasure there. True or false?
False. The reason I'm going to go with false on that is there's only one example I can think of a pirate that buried treasure, and there's a big question mark as to whether he was truly a pirate. Captain Kidd is the one I'm referring to. He was definitely a privateer. If you look into the specifics of what was going on, there is even a question mark as to whether he was truly a pirate. And he behaved differently to all your other typical pirates because he didn't think he was a pirate. So his mentality was not that of a pirate. And actually, he buried the treasure because he knew he was going to get arrested and figured if he buried it, he could try and use that as leverage to try and get some help, which was a really bad idea, actually. It really didn't work out for him, that. But no, basically, when you think of pirates, think of a bunch of muggers who are desperate. They've now committed piracy. They know that they're now wanted men. And I'm saying men because we reckon 1 in 10,000 pirates was female. That's European pirates, which is not a big statistic. So these are desperate men. Most of them will actually be thinking that they're not going to get away with this in the long term. A lot of people, when they signed up to pirate crews, they signed up when they were drunk. Yeah, when their ship surrendered and they lowered their flag, pulled in their sails, it would take the pirates up to an hour to get alongside. They know the first thing the pirates are going to do is break open the liquor stores, so you might as well do it yourself. So quite often the crew would already be drunk when the pirates came aboard, which we think was a big factor in people choosing to join pirate crews, was because actually they were already drunk, so they went, what the hell? In fact, in many cases, they actually were drunk for the entirety of their pirate career, which could have been 2 or 3 months in some of these cases. And they claim that they never sobered up in that entire time. These are not people that are really long-term planning. In fact, pirates are noted for being very free spending. We've got accounts of pirates that spent a small fortune on things that should have cost far less, just because they could, and they did. Also, buying generous gifts for people as well, and heaping money onto other people was something that they did quite a lot of. So think free spending, careless, drunk most likely. Burying treasure? No, not a thing. Hiding it in a jacket? Totally, yeah. But burying it, no.
So on the subject of hiding treasure in your jacket, also that pirates wore their wealth, so hence lots of earrings, lots of maybe jewelry and stuff. That's another way to make your wealth transportable. True or false?
False.
Oh.
On the whole. Wearing earrings wasn't really a thing. It wasn't a fashion for Europeans. I think we've got... I think there's 2 or 3 pirates that I mentioned wearing earrings. These are in wanted descriptions, and wanted descriptions in the period were generally very thorough. You know, a man of between 5 feet 8 inches and 5 feet 10, clean shaven, blue eyes, etc., etc. And then you get these ones that say, you know, man around 20 years wearing an earring, and you go, well, where's the rest of the description? Why are they just mentioning an earring? And that's because it's such a rare feature. So the whole gold earrings or pearl earrings, not really a thing. And on that note, tattoos also totally not a thing. We know of one pirate with a tattoo we know of in the entire period, and his description was man in his 20s, bird tattoo on arm. Didn't even say which arm, because it was such an unusual feature that you go, oh yeah, somebody in their 20s with a bird tattoo on his arm, that's the bloke. In the entire world, he's going to be that one.
That's awesome. On the subject of appearances, beards.
Yeah, okay, that's one thing where those amongst the very small community of authentic pirate reenactors I know, it's one thing we really do fall down on. And I think it was best summed up by Dr. Ed Fox, in that we all look quite ugly without beards. But pirates and indeed sailors, almost all sailors were clean shaven. It was a fashion for sailors. In fact, that's why Blackbeard is Blackbeard, because you think about it, if they all had beards, why would he be called Blackbeard? You know, because that's half the crew you've just referred to. Also, we think now actually Blackbeard was almost certainly a landsman before he became a pirate. He wasn't actually a man that had a particular career as a sailor, which would also explain for his strange dress, and also lots of other strangeness about Blackbeard. Beards just really weren't a thing. So I sport this because I look very silly without a beard.
I can't believe. Well, I've not seen you without beard, Jim, so I can't comment.
Well, you sort of imagine me flip over. Yeah.
Oh, right. Staying on the subject of appearances, the infamous pirate eye patch.
Yes, of course, the eye patch, which some people will already know is of course worn so that when you go below decks or come up from below decks, your eyesight isn't affected by the change in light conditions.
What? Only one eye.
So the story goes, so if you keep the eye patch on, then if you go below decks or from below decks going upwards, you don't lose your night vision or something, which is completely fabricated, totally made up, no evidence for it whatsoever, and is a huge steaming pile of garbage, in my opinion. The association of pirates with eye patches is, it seems to mostly originate from Treasure Island and Hollywood tropes, basically. Yes, there were industrial accidents aboard ship. No doubt people did lose their eyesight, but pirates wearing eye patches doesn't seem to be that's a particular big thing. What we do know is that pirates often had articles that they wrote themselves, which were rules about how they run the ship. And a common feature was compensation, where it would actually say that if a man lost an eye or a leg or an arm, he'd be compensated a certain amount of money from what the crew have captured. Of course, they're writing these rules generally before they've captured any loot, so they are being quite hopeful. They did set out an amount of how much compensation you should get for losing an eye, but the turning up of eye patches in mentions of pirates is not particularly different to what they would have been statistically just for being sailors, as far as we can see. So it's not a particularly piratey thing. It's not something in the street where you go, oh, look, eye patch, that's got to be a pirate. It's more likely to be a former soldier than anything else.
So the wandering shop, Jim, where does it wander to?
Well, I must admit, up until when we went into lockdown, it was doing quite a lot of wandering. I think I was clocking up about best part of 40 weekends away prior to this all kicking off. I'm very pleased to be a member of the historic travelling market, along with Martin Cowley and various other co-conspirators. Our Christmas markets in particular have been taking off. As well as reenactment, I get to quite a lot of LARP events, which are well worth looking at for reenactment traders. There's a lot of potential out there as well. And you'll meet lots of familiar faces. There's a lot of reenactors now turning up to those events as well, just to go and have some fun, basically. I spent a couple of summers back, I spent most of the summer up at Bamber Castle, which was an interesting venue for me. So it was quite nice to actually be somewhere for a solid 6 or 7 weeks at a time. The new shop setup does take the best part of about 13 hours to get to assemble, since the new shop is largely made of wood, because I'm trying to go for more of a building kind of look. So I get to Viking events, medieval events, the occasional English Civil War events, pirate events, of course, a smattering of LARP events, and then I get to weird and wonderful things as well. A couple of witchcraft and pagan events.
Thank you very much, Jim. And people can find you on Facebook.
Yeah, they can find me on Facebook, although primarily the shop these days is on his own website, which is wanderingshop.com, with no G, Wanderin Shop. But you should be able to find that. It should be the first hit from a Google anyway. Probably on Facebook, of course, if anyone's got any questions, wants to find out more about pirates or inquire about stock. Cool, right, turtles.
Thanks, Jim. Have a good one.
You've been listening to a podcast from the Artisan and Reenactors Market. The Arm family welcomes new traders, groups, living history and performers. See the website armarket.uk. All music from this podcast series is provided by A Merrie Noyse. Find out more about their medieval, Tudor and 17th century music on their YouTube channel and their website, amerrienoyse.com. Asking the questions has been me, Jen from Drakosdottir, and also Norfolk, to explain the accent. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to your company next time.